About 2,600,000 years ago, Earth entered one of the most dramatic chapters in its history. Huge sheets of ice spread across vast lands, changing rivers, forests, and open plains. Giant woolly mammoths walked through frozen valleys, while powerful saber-toothed cats hunted for food. Giant bears, woolly rhinos, and many other amazing animals struggled to survive in a harsh world. At the same time, early humans learned new ways to hunt, build shelters, make tools, and work together against the cold. Every season brought fresh dangers and new chances to live another day. The Ice Age was a very long period in Earth's history when the planet was much colder than it is today. During this time, huge sheets of ice spread across large parts of the land. These thick masses of ice covered mountains, valleys, forests, rivers, and wide open plains. They slowly moved across the ground over many thousands of years, changing the shape of the land wherever they traveled. Even though many people think of the Ice Age as one single cold event, it was actually a long chapter in Earth's history that included many colder and warmer periods. The cold periods allowed ice sheets to grow, while the warmer periods caused some of the ice to melt back. Scientists use the term Ice Age to describe any long period when permanent ice exists at both the northern and southern ends of the Earth. By this meaning, the planet is still living in an ice age because large ice sheets remain in Greenland and Antarctica. The time that most people call the Ice Age is actually the latest cold part of the present Ice Age. This recent cold period lasted through many thousands of years before the climate became warmer again. During this time, early humans shared the world with animals such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer, cave lions, and saber-toothed cats in many regions. The Ice Age was not cold everywhere in exactly the same way. Different parts of the world experienced different weather conditions. Some places were buried beneath very thick ice, while others remained free of ice but were much colder and drier than today. Some areas became wide grasslands, while others became frozen deserts with very little plant life. Rainfall changed from place to place, and many rivers followed different paths because of the changing landscape. The Earth's climate changes naturally over very long periods. These changes happen because many natural forces work together. Small changes in the Earth's path around the Sun, the angle at which the Earth tilts, and the slow movement of the Earth's axis all affect how much sunlight reaches different parts of the planet during different seasons. These changes happen very slowly across many thousands of years. They can make summers cooler or warmer in certain places. When summers stay cool for a long time, snow from winter does not melt completely. More snow builds up each year until it becomes thick ice. Snow changes into ice through a slow process. Fresh snow contains many tiny spaces filled with air. As more snow falls on top, the weight presses the lower layers together. The snow becomes denser. The air spaces become smaller. After many years, the snow changes into solid ice. More snowfall keeps adding new layers, making the ice thicker. In some places during the Ice Age, the ice became several kilometers thick. Ice sheets are not still objects. Even though they move very slowly, they are always changing. The enormous weight of the ice causes it to spread outward. It flows across the land little by little. Rocks trapped inside the ice scrape against the ground below. This slowly wears away hills and mountains. The moving ice also carries rocks, soil, and sand over long distances before leaving them behind in new places. As glaciers moved, they carved deep valleys, widened river channels, and shaped many of the landscapes that exist today. Many lakes found across northern North America and northern Europe were formed because of the work of glaciers. Some valleys became deeper as the ice passed through them again and again. When the climate became warmer and the glaciers melted, water filled many of these low places, creating lakes that remain today. The weight of thick ice also pushed down the Earth's surface. The land beneath the glaciers slowly sank under the heavy pressure. When the ice melted away, the pressure became smaller, and the land slowly began to rise again. This process continues even today in some regions that were once covered by ice. Scientists measure this slow movement using modern equipment and careful observations. The oceans also changed greatly during the Ice Age. Much of the Earth's water became trapped inside giant ice sheets. Because so much water was frozen on land, sea levels became much lower than they are today. Large areas that are now beneath the sea were dry land during the coldest times. These land areas connected places that are now separated by water. One of the best-known land connections joined Asia and North America. A broad area of land existed where the Bering Strait is now found. This land bridge allowed animals and humans to travel between the continents over many generations. They did not cross in a single journey. Families slowly moved across the landscape while following food, water, and changing seasons. Lower sea levels also changed coastlines around the world. Many beaches were much farther from their present locations. Rivers flowed across land that is now beneath the sea before reaching the ocean. As sea levels later rose, these old river valleys became flooded. The colder climate affected the air as well. Cold air holds less moisture than warm air. Because of this, many places became much drier. Some forests disappeared because there was not enough rainfall to support large numbers of trees. Grasslands spread across many regions where grasses, small plants and hardy shrubs could survive the cold conditions. Plants had to adjust to changing temperatures and shorter growing seasons. Many trees moved slowly toward warmer regions over many generations as seeds spread into areas with better conditions. Plants that could not survive the colder climate disappeared from some places. Others remained in protected valleys where temperatures stayed slightly warmer. Animals also had to adapt. Many species developed thick fur to help keep body heat. Some grew layers of fat beneath their skin, others became larger because larger bodies lose heat more slowly than smaller ones. Some animals changed their eating habits as different plants became available. Others traveled long distances every year in search of food. The woolly mammoth became one of the most famous animals of the Ice Age. It had long hair, a thick layer of fat, small ears, and curved tusks. These features helped it live in cold environments. Mammoths fed mainly on grasses, sedges, and other plants growing across open plains. They lived in family groups led by older females, much like modern elephants. The woolly rhinoceros also lived in cold grasslands. It had thick fur covering its body and a large horn on its nose. It fed on low plants growing near the ground. Fossils show that these animals spread across wide parts of Europe and Asia during the colder periods. Large deer with enormous antlers lived in many places during the Ice Age. These animals fed on grasses, leaves, and small plants. The size of their antlers may have helped during mating seasons, although carrying such large antlers also required great strength. Predators hunted the plant-eating animals. Cave lions lived across many parts of Europe and Asia. They hunted horses, deer, young mammoths, and other animals. Packs of wolves also searched for prey across open landscapes. Hyenas lived in some regions and fed by hunting as well as eating animals that had already died. Saber-toothed cats lived mainly in North and South America, although other large cats with long teeth appeared in different regions. Their long canine teeth were useful during hunting. Scientists continue studying exactly how these animals used these teeth while catching prey. Smaller animals were also important during the Ice Age. Rabbits, foxes, mice, birds, insects, frogs, and fish formed part of the natural environment. Every species played a role in the movement of energy through nature. Small animals became food for larger hunters. Insects helped break down dead plants and animals. Birds spread seeds and helped control insect numbers. Many animals survived by sleeping through the coldest months. Others remained active all year by finding food beneath snow or storing food before winter arrived. Different species developed different ways of dealing with changing weather. Early humans also lived during the Ice Age. Several human species existed at different times. They learned to survive in difficult conditions by working together, making tools, controlling fire, building shelters, and making clothing from animal skins. Human knowledge slowly grew as each generation passed useful skills to the next. Stone tools became more advanced over time. Early people shaped rocks into cutting tools, spear points, scrapers, and knives. These tools helped prepare food, cut wood, shape bones, and make clothing. Different groups developed their own methods depending on the materials available where they lived. Fire became one of the most important parts of daily life. It provided warmth during cold nights. It allowed people to cook meat and plants, making food easier to eat and sometimes safer. Fire also gave light after sunset and helped keep dangerous animals away from camps. Clothing became necessary in colder regions. Animal hides were cleaned, scraped, and sewn together using bone needles and threads made from animal parts. Fur provided extra warmth. Different layers helped protect people from freezing temperatures, wind, rain, and snow. Shelters also changed. Some groups lived in caves when suitable caves were available. Others built homes using wood, bones from large animals, animal skins, grass, and other natural materials. These shelters helped reduce exposure to cold winds and heavy snowfall. Food sources changed with the seasons. Hunting remained important in many places, but people also gathered roots, nuts, berries, seeds, eggs, shellfish, and edible plants whenever they could find them. Fishing became valuable near rivers, lakes, and coastlines. Human groups often moved from place to place throughout the year. They followed migrating animals or traveled to areas where food was easier to find. This movement allowed them to survive changing weather conditions. Life during the Ice Age was challenging. Food supplies sometimes became scarce. Long winters could last many months. Storms created dangerous conditions. Injuries could become serious because there were no modern medicines. Despite these hardships, humans continued spreading into new regions and developing new skills. Scientists learn about the Ice Age through many kinds of evidence. Fossils provide information about plants and animals that lived long ago. Bones reveal the size, shape, and health of ancient creatures. Teeth provide clues about diets. Footprints preserved in mud show how animals and humans moved across ancient landscapes. Ancient pollen preserved in lake sediments helps scientists understand past plant life. Different plants produce pollen with unique shapes. By studying layers of pollen buried over many thousands of years, scientists can learn which plants lived in different regions at different times. This also helps reveal changes in climate. Ice cores provide another important source of information. Scientists drill deep into thick ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica to remove long cylinders of ice. Each layer represents snowfall from long ago. Tiny bubbles trapped inside the ice contain samples of ancient air. These bubbles allow scientists to measure gases that were present in the atmosphere many thousands of years ago. Dust trapped inside ice cores also provides valuable information. Wind carried tiny particles from deserts and volcanic eruptions across great distances before they became buried by new snowfall. Wind carried tiny particles from deserts and volcanic eruptions across great distances before they became buried by new snowfall. These particles help scientists understand changing weather patterns and natural events. Ocean sediments also preserve records of ancient climates. Tiny sea creatures lived in the oceans and left behind shells after they died. These shells settled onto the sea floor and became buried over time. By studying these layers, scientists learn about ocean temperatures and changing sea conditions during different periods. Caves preserve another important climate record. Water dripping through cave ceilings slowly forms mineral deposits called stalactites and stalagmites. These deposits grow very slowly. Their chemical makeup changes according to rainfall and temperature. Scientists carefully study these layers to understand ancient climates. Tree rings also provide climate information, although they mainly record more recent periods after many glaciers had already begun melting. Trees usually produce one growth ring each year. Wide rings often show favorable growing conditions, while narrow rings suggest difficult years. Scientists also study ancient DNA. Genetic material sometimes survives inside frozen bones, teeth, hair, and preserved soft tissues. This allows researchers to learn about relationships between extinct animals and living species. Ancient DNA has helped reveal the history of mammoths, bears, wolves, horses, and early humans. The Ice Age did not remain equally cold throughout its long history. Temperatures rose and fell many times. Ice sheets expanded during colder periods and shrank during warmer periods. These repeated changes affected where plants, animals, and humans could live. Volcanoes sometimes influenced climate for shorter periods. Large eruptions sent ash and tiny particles high into the atmosphere. These particles reflected some sunlight back into space, causing temporary cooling. However, volcanic activity alone did not create the entire Ice Age. The amount of carbon dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere also changed over time. These gases help trap heat near the Earth's surface. Lower amounts generally allowed more heat to escape into space, supporting colder conditions. Higher amounts helped warm the planet. Scientists study these changes carefully because they are part of Earth's natural climate system. Ocean currents also affected climate. Warm and cold water constantly move through the world's oceans. Changes in these currents influence temperatures, rainfall, and wind patterns across many regions. Small shifts in ocean circulation sometimes produced large effects over long periods. Mountain ranges influenced snowfall during the Ice Age. As moist air moved across mountains, it cooled and released snow. This snowfall fed growing glaciers in high regions. Valleys became filled with flowing ice that slowly extended into lower areas. Wind shaped the frozen landscape in many places. Strong winds carried fine dust across dry plains. Thick layers of this dust settled over large regions, creating fertile soils that remain useful for farming today in some parts of the world. Many rivers became blocked by advancing glaciers. Water collected behind natural ice barriers, forming large lakes. When these barriers eventually broke, enormous amounts of water rushed downstream, changing river valleys and carrying huge amounts of rock and soil. Frozen ground, known as permafrost, covered large regions during the Ice Age. In these places, the ground remained frozen throughout the entire year. Only a thin upper layer melted during the warmer months. Permafrost affected which plants could grow and where animals could find food. The frozen ground also preserved many ancient remains. Some mammoths, horses, wolves and other animals became trapped in frozen soil after death. Their bodies remained preserved because low temperatures slowed decay. Scientists have discovered hair, skin, muscles, stomach contents, and even blood vessels in some frozen animals. The stomach contents of preserved animals provide direct evidence of what they were eating shortly before death. Seeds, grasses, flowers, mosses, and other plants have been found inside these preserved remains. Such discoveries help scientists rebuild ancient environments in great detail. Human remains from the Ice Age are much rarer than animal fossils, but they also provide valuable information. Bones reveal health, diet, injuries, diseases, and physical activity. Ancient DNA extracted from these remains helps scientists understand human migration and relationships among different populations. Cave paintings provide another window into Ice Age life. Early artists painted animals, hunting scenes, handprints and symbols on cave walls using natural colors made from minerals, charcoal and other materials. These paintings show many of the animals that lived during the cold periods and demonstrate that artistic expression already existed among early humans. Small carvings made from bone, ivory, antler and stone have also been discovered. These objects may have served cultural, religious or personal purposes. Some represent animals, while others show human figures or patterns. The end of the most recent cold period happened gradually rather than suddenly. Temperatures slowly increased over many thousands of years. Glaciers melted and retreated towards higher mountains and northern regions. Rivers carried large amounts of meltwater towards the oceans. Sea levels slowly rose as frozen water returned to the seas. As temperatures increased, forests spread into areas that had previously been open grasslands. Different kinds of plants replaced those that had grown during colder conditions. Animals followed changing food supplies. Some species moved farther north or into higher mountains where cooler conditions remained. Not every Ice Age animal survived these environmental changes. Some species became extinct. Scientists continue studying the reasons behind these extinctions. Climate change affected habitats and food supplies. Human hunting may also have contributed in some regions. The importance of each factor likely differed depending on the species and the location. The disappearance of mammoths happened at different times in different places. Some populations vanished earlier than others. Small groups survived on isolated islands long after many mainland populations had disappeared because they remained separated from changing conditions elsewhere. Human societies continued developing after the climate became warmer. Farming eventually appeared in several regions of the world. Permanent villages slowly became more common. These changes happened many thousands of years after the coldest parts of the Ice Age had ended. The Ice Age left lasting marks on Earth's surface that remain visible today. Rounded hills, deep valleys, long ridges of rock, scattered boulders, broad lakes and polished rock surfaces all provide evidence of ancient glaciers. Many landscapes across North America, Europe and Asia still show the effects of moving ice. Large rocks carried far from their original locations are called glacial erratics. Glaciers picked up these rocks and transported them over long distances before leaving them behind as the ice melted. Scientists can often identify where these rocks originally came from by studying their mineral makeup. Long ridges of sand, gravel and stones were also left behind by melting glaciers. These deposits, formed as flowing water, carried material away from the ice before dropping it onto the land. Such deposits influence modern rivers, groundwater and soil conditions. Many modern lakes owe their existence to glacial activity. Some lakes formed in deep basins carved by ice. Others formed where glacial deposits blocked rivers and trapped water. Countless smaller ponds also appeared after glaciers disappeared. The Great Lakes of North America were shaped by repeated glacial activity over long periods. Thick ice carved and deepened existing basins before melting water filled them. These lakes now contain a large share of the world's fresh surface water. Northern Europe also carries many signs of glacial history. Norway's deep coastal valleys were shaped by glaciers before later becoming flooded by the sea. Finland contains thousands of lakes that developed after glacial retreat. Scotland, Sweden, and many other regions preserve similar evidence. Antarctica and Greenland continue holding enormous amounts of ice today. These ice sheets preserve valuable records of Earth's past climate, while also affecting present sea levels and weather systems. The Ice Age began because the Earth's climate slowly became colder over a very long period. This did not happen in a single year or even over thousands of years. It was the result of many natural changes that worked together. These changes affected the amount of heat reaching the Earth's surface, the movement of the oceans, the flow of the atmosphere, the growth of mountains, the level of carbon dioxide in the air, and many other parts of the planet. As these changes continued, large areas of land remained cold enough for snow to stay on the ground throughout the year. Instead of melting during warmer seasons, the snow slowly built up into thick layers of ice. Over a very long time, these layers became giant ice sheets that spread across much of the northern hemisphere. The Earth has not always had the same climate. Throughout its long history, the planet has passed through many warm periods and many cold periods. Some of these cold periods lasted for millions of years, while others were much shorter. The most recent Ice Age is the one that people usually think about when they hear the words Ice Age. This long cold period began about 2,600,000 years ago. During this time, the climate moved back and forth between colder and warmer conditions. The coldest parts allowed huge ice sheets to spread across northern North America, northern Europe, and large parts of Asia. During the warmer parts, much of this ice melted back, although some remained in the coldest places. One of the main reasons for these repeated climate changes was the way the Earth moved around the Sun. The Earth does not travel around the Sun in exactly the same way all the time. Over many thousands of years, small changes take place in the shape of its path around the Sun, the angle of its tilt, and the direction in which its axis points. These slow changes affect how sunlight reaches different parts of the Earth during different seasons. When northern lands receive less sunlight during summer, snow from the previous winter does not melt as completely. More snow remains on the ground. The following winter adds another layer of snow year after year. This process allows ice to grow thicker. The Earth's tilt also changes slowly over time. The angle of the tilt affects how much sunlight reaches the northern and southern parts of the planet. A smaller tilt can lead to cooler summers in high northern areas. These cooler summers make it easier for snow to survive from one year to the next. As snow remains on the ground, it slowly becomes packed into solid ice under its own weight. Fresh snow falls on top of older layers, pressing them together until large glaciers begin to form. Another important change involves the direction in which the Earth's axis points. This movement changes the timing of the seasons during the Earth's journey around the Sun. When this change works together with changes in the Earth's path and tilt, the amount of summer sunlight reaching northern lands can become much lower. This creates better conditions for ice sheets to expand. These slow movements of the Earth happen naturally and continue today. They do not suddenly create an ice age by themselves. Instead, they change the balance of heat reaching the planet. Other natural processes then increase the cooling, allowing the cold conditions to become stronger and last longer. Carbon dioxide also played an important part in the beginning of the Ice Age. Carbon dioxide is a gas in the atmosphere that helps hold some of the sun's heat near the Earth's surface. Without it, the Earth would be much colder than it is today. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has changed many times throughout Earth's history. During the beginning of the Ice Age, the amount became lower than it had been during many earlier warm periods. With less carbon dioxide in the air, more heat escaped into space. This allowed temperatures to fall more easily. Many natural events helped lower carbon dioxide over millions of years. One important process involved the slow wearing away of rocks. Rainwater mixed with small amounts of carbon dioxide forms a weak natural acid. As this water flows over rocks, it slowly breaks them down. During this process, carbon is carried by rivers into the oceans. There it can become part of shells made by tiny sea animals and other sea life. After these living things die, their shells sink to the ocean floor, where some of the carbon remains trapped in rocks for very long periods. The movement of the Earth's crust also affected the climate. The outer part of the Earth is divided into large pieces called tectonic plates. These plates move very slowly. Over millions of years, they carry continents into new positions. As continents move, they change the paths of ocean currents and air currents. These changes can affect temperatures across the planet. The rise of large mountain ranges also influence the climate. When mountains rise, they change the movement of air. Moist air is forced upward, where it cools and forms clouds and rain. Heavy rainfall increases the breaking down of rocks, which can slowly remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. High mountains also remain colder than nearby lowlands. Snow can stay on their peaks throughout the year, helping glaciers begin to grow. Ocean currents are another important part of the Earth's climate system. The oceans carry huge amounts of heat around the world. Warm water moves from tropical regions toward colder places, while cold water travels in other directions. If these currents change, temperatures over large areas can also change. Small changes in the positions of continents or the depth of ocean passages can change the way ocean currents flow. One important event happened when the land bridge connecting North America and South America fully formed after millions of years of geological activity. This changed the movement of water between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Ocean currents became different, and warm water was carried farther north into the Atlantic. This increased the amount of moisture reaching northern lands. During winter, much of this moisture fell as snow. If summers remained cool enough, the snow stayed on the ground and gradually became thick ice. Snow itself also affects climate. Fresh snow reflects much of the sunlight that reaches it back into space. This means less heat is absorbed by the ground. As more snow covers the land, the surface stays colder. The colder surface allows even more snow to remain through the summer. This process helped ice sheets grow larger once they had already begun forming. As glaciers expanded, they covered forests, rivers, lakes, and open land. Thick ice reflected even more sunlight. The growing ice sheets also changed wind patterns. Cold air flowing from the ice spread into nearby regions, lowering temperatures even farther from the edges of the glaciers. This allowed new areas to become cold enough for more snow and ice to survive. Volcanoes also affected climate in different ways. Large volcanic eruptions release dust and tiny particles high into the atmosphere. These particles can block some sunlight for months or even several years, leading to temporary cooling. At the same time, volcanoes release gases, including carbon dioxide. Over millions of years, the balance between volcanic activity and the natural removal of carbon dioxide affects long-term climate. During the beginning of the Ice Age, the overall balance favored lower carbon dioxide levels, making it easier for cooling to continue. Changes in plant life also influenced the atmosphere. Plants remove carbon dioxide from the air during photosynthesis. They use sunlight to make food and release oxygen. As forests spread into new areas over millions of years, they stored large amounts of carbon in wood, leaves, roots, and soils. Some of this carbon remained buried after plants died, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The oceans also stored enormous amounts of carbon. Tiny living organisms floating near the ocean surface used carbon dioxide while growing. After they died, many sank toward the deep ocean. Some of their remains became trapped in ocean sediments. This natural process slowly removed carbon from the atmosphere over very long periods. The Earth's climate system contains many connected parts. The atmosphere, oceans, land, ice, plants, animals, and rocks all affect one another. A small change in one part of the system can slowly influence many other parts. During the beginning of the Ice Age, several natural processes happened together. Lower summer sunlight in northern regions, falling carbon dioxide levels, changing ocean currents, growing mountain ranges, and expanding snow cover all work together to create conditions that allowed large ice sheets to form and spread. The Ice Age landscape was very different from the world that people know today. Huge sheets of ice covered large parts of the northern land. These ice sheets spread across much of North America, northern Europe, and northern Asia during the coldest times. In many places, the ice became so thick that it reached several miles from the ground to the surface. The great weight of the ice pressed down on the land beneath it. Mountains, valleys, rivers, forests, and open ground all changed because of the steady movement of the ice. Some places remained frozen throughout the year, while others experienced short summers that allowed a little melting before winter returned once again. The largest ice sheets did not appear overnight. Snow fell year after year. During summers, not all of the snow melted. Fresh snow landed on top of older snow. The lower layers became packed tightly together because of the weight above them. Over a very long time, the snow changed into solid ice. Each new season added more snow, making the ice thicker and heavier. Eventually, the ice became so large that it slowly began to move under its own weight. Glaciers moved very slowly across the land. A person standing nearby would not notice the movement from one moment to the next. Even though the movement was slow, it never truly stopped as long as enough ice remained. The lower part of the glacier slid across the ground while the upper part followed behind. Rocks, soil, sand, and broken pieces of mountains became trapped inside the moving ice. These materials scraped against the land below, wearing away hills, cutting deeper valleys, and changing the shape of the ground. The front edge of a glacier often pushed large amounts of rocks and soil ahead of it. As the glacier moved forward, it collected even more material. When the climate became warmer and the glacier melted, these piles of rock and soil remained behind. Many of the hills and ridges found in places that were once covered by glaciers formed in this way. The land kept the marks left by the moving ice long after the glaciers disappeared. Some glaciers filled entire valleys between mountains. These valley glaciers slowly carved the sides and bottoms of the valleys, making them wider and deeper. Valleys that had once been narrow became broad with steep sides. After the glaciers melted, rivers often flowed through these valleys. In some places, lakes formed because the glaciers had dug deep basins into the land. Large ice sheets also shaped the land in many other ways. They polished hard rocks until they became smooth. They left long scratches on exposed rock surfaces as trapped stones scraped across them. These marks still exist today and help scientists understand the direction in which the glaciers once moved. Even after thousands of years, these signs remain clear in many places. Many regions near the edges of the ice sheets did not stay completely covered with ice. Instead, the ground froze deeply. This frozen ground is known today as permafrost. In these places, the upper layer of soil sometimes thawed during the short summer, while the deeper ground stayed frozen throughout the year. Plants could grow only in the thin surface layer, where roots were able to spread during the warmer months. Permafrost affected rivers, lakes, and wetlands. Water could not easily sink into the frozen ground below. As a result, water often collected on the surface. This created many ponds, marshes, and shallow lakes. During spring and summer, melting snow added even more water. Some lakes remained only for a short time, while others lasted much longer. The frozen plains stretched for great distances beyond the edge of the glaciers. These open lands had very few trees because the cold climate made it difficult for forests to grow. Instead, grasses, mosses, small flowering plants, low bushes and hardy herbs covered much of the ground where conditions allowed. These plants were able to survive short growing seasons and low temperatures. The frozen plains supported many kinds of animals. Large plant-eating animals moved across these open areas in search of food. Woolly mammoths pulled up grasses with their trunks and ate large amounts each day. Woolly rhinoceroses fed on grasses and other low plants. Steppe bison, wild horses, musk oxen, reindeer, and saiga antelope also lived on these plains. They often travelled long distances as the seasons changed and food became more difficult to find. Predators followed the plant-eating animals. Wolves hunted in groups. Cave lions searched the open land for weak or isolated prey. Saber-toothed cats lived in some regions during parts of the Ice Age. Brown bears, cave bears, foxes, and other meat-eating animals also lived in different parts of the cold landscape. Their survival depended on healthy populations of grazing animals. Birds also found ways to live in the Ice Age environment. Some remained all year, while others migrated with the seasons. Water birds gathered near lakes and rivers during warmer months. Birds of prey hunted small animals across the open plains. Smaller birds searched for seeds and insects whenever food became available. Small animals played an important part in the Ice Age landscape. Mice, voles, rabbits, hares, squirrels, and lemmings lived among grasses and bushes. Many dug underground homes to escape the cold and avoid predators. These small animals reproduced quickly and became food for larger hunters. Their activities also helped mix the soil and spread plant seeds. Insects remained active during the warmer months. Even though the climate was cold, many insects completed their life cycles during the short summer. Flies, beetles, butterflies, and other insects became food for birds and small mammals. They also helped pollinate flowering plants that managed to bloom during the brief growing season. The climate across the Ice Age world was not equally cold everywhere. Areas closer to the ice sheets experienced much colder conditions than places farther away. Some regions had cool summers but very cold winters. Other places remained dry for much of the year. Rainfall patterns changed because the large ice sheets affected the movement of air across the planet. Strong winds often swept across the open plains. With few forests to block them, winds carried dust over long distances. Fine particles settled across wide areas, creating thick layers of soil known today as loess. These wind-blown soils later became rich farmland after the Ice Age ended. The dust came mainly from areas where glaciers ground rocks into fine powder. Dust storms could become common in some places during dry seasons. The loose material left behind by glaciers was easily picked up by strong winds. These storms changed the appearance of the landscape and covered plants with layers of dust. Animals living in these regions had to cope with these changing conditions. Many rivers behaved differently during the Ice Age. During spring and early summer, melting snow and ice caused rivers to swell. Large amounts of water flowed toward lower ground. Some rivers carried huge loads of sand, gravel, and broken rocks. These materials settled along river banks or formed new islands and river channels. As glaciers melted, they sometimes blocked rivers with piles of rock and ice. Water collected behind these natural barriers, forming large lakes. If the barriers later broke, enormous floods rushed across the land. These floods carried rocks, soil, and trees over long distances. They also carved new channels and reshaped valleys very quickly. Glacial lakes appeared in many regions. Some lasted only until the ice melted completely. Others survived and still exist today. Many of the large lakes in North America and Europe owe much of their present shape to the work of glaciers during the Ice Age. The movement of ice dug deep basins that later filled with water. The oceans also changed greatly during the Ice Age. So much water became locked inside glaciers and ice sheets that sea levels dropped around the world. Shorelines moved much farther away from their present positions. Areas that are now underwater became dry land. Wide coastal plains appeared along many parts of the world. Lower sea levels connected lands that are now separated by water. During some cold periods, people and animals could travel across these land connections. One of the best known was the land bridge between Asia and North America. This broad area allowed animals and later humans to move between the two continents over many generations. Other land bridges also appeared in different parts of the world as sea levels fell. Islands became connected to nearby mainlands. Animals spread into new regions where they had never lived before. Plants slowly expanded into newly exposed land whenever conditions allowed. The coastlines during the Ice Age looked very different from those seen today. Rivers extended farther before reaching the sea. New beaches formed in places that are now underwater. Cliffs stood farther from the shoreline. Wide plains stretched between the sea and higher land. When the climate warmed and glaciers melted, sea levels slowly rose again. Water returned to the oceans, covering many of the exposed coastal plains. Land bridges disappeared beneath the sea. Communities of animals became separated from one another. Human groups living near the coast had to move inland as the shoreline slowly advanced. The rising seas did not happen all at once. The process took many thousands of years. Some periods saw faster rises, while others experienced slower changes. Coastal landscapes changed gradually as waves reached areas that had once been dry ground. The changing sea levels affected ocean currents as well. Water moved differently through narrow channels and around continents. These changes influenced climate by altering how heat traveled through the oceans. Some regions became wetter, while others became drier, as weather patterns shifted over long periods. Mountain regions experienced their own Ice Age conditions. Snow remained on high peaks throughout the year. Valley glaciers flowed downward, carving deep paths through the mountains. Cold air settled into valleys, creating difficult conditions for plants and animals. Only species adapted to these environments could survive. Some mountain plants survived by growing close to the ground. Their small size helped reduce damage from cold winds. Certain animals developed thick coats, strong legs, and wide feet that allowed them to move over snow and rough ground. Mountain goats, sheep and other hardy animals lived in these areas where food remained limited. Volcanoes continued to erupt during the Ice Age, just as they do today. Lava sometimes flowed onto snow and ice, causing rapid melting nearby. Ash from eruptions spread across wide regions. This ash settled on glaciers, lakes, forests, and plains. Scientists can still study these layers of volcanic ash to understand the timing of past eruptions. Earthquakes also continued to shape the landscape. Mountains slowly rose in some places, while faults shifted beneath the surface. The great weight of the ice sheets affected the land itself. When the ice later melted, the land slowly began rising again because the heavy pressure had been removed. This slow upward movement continues in some regions even today. Large rocks carried by glaciers often ended up far from where they originally formed. These rocks are called glacial erratics. A glacier could transport an enormous boulder over many miles before leaving it behind as the ice melted. Scientists use these rocks to trace the paths followed by ancient glaciers. The ground beneath glaciers often became compacted because of the great pressure. Soil was squeezed tightly, making it difficult for water to pass through. After the glaciers melted, new plants slowly spread across the exposed ground. At first, only hardy species survived. Over time, more kinds of plants appeared as soil developed. The first plants to return after the ice retreated often included mosses and lichens. These simple organisms could grow directly on bare rock. They slowly helped break down the rock into smaller pieces. Dead plant material mixed with this broken rock to begin forming new soil. As the soil became deeper, grasses and small plants spread across the land. Bushes appeared after grasses became established. In warmer regions, trees eventually followed. Forests slowly expanded northward as temperatures increased. The return of forests changed animal populations because different species preferred wooded environments rather than open plains. The Ice Age landscape contained many lakes formed by melting blocks of ice left behind after glaciers retreated. These isolated pieces of ice became buried under soil and gravel. As they eventually melted, the ground above collapsed, creating round depressions that filled with water. Many small lakes across former glacial regions formed in this way. Streams flowing from melting glaciers often carried milky water filled with fine rock particles. These tiny pieces remained suspended in the water for long periods. Lakes fed by glacier melt sometimes appeared cloudy because of this fine material. Over time, the particles settled to the bottom, creating layers that scientists study today. During the Ice Age, large parts of the world became much colder than they are today. Huge sheets of ice covered many northern areas, but not every place was buried under ice. Many regions remained open and supported different kinds of plant life. These plants became the main source of food for the animals that lived through the long cold periods. Even though the weather was harsh, many plants found ways to survive. Their ability to grow in freezing conditions helped support large numbers of animals, from tiny insects to giant plant eaters. Without these hardy plants, many Ice Age animals would not have been able to find enough food to live, grow, and raise their young. The plants that survived the Ice Age were very different from the thick forests that had covered many places during warmer times. Cold weather and short growing seasons made it difficult for large trees to spread across wide areas. Instead, much of the land was covered by grasses, small flowering plants, mosses, lichens, sedges and low shrubs. These plants could grow quickly during the short, warm season and remain alive through the long, cold months. Grasses became one of the most important plant groups during the Ice Age. They covered large open plains that stretched for many miles across Europe, Asia, and North America. These open grasslands gave food to many large animals such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, ancient horses, bison, musk oxen, and several kinds of deer. Grasses continued growing from their base even after animals ate their leaves. This allowed them to recover after heavy grazing. Their roots also spread deep into the ground, helping them reach water and stay alive during dry periods as well as cold seasons. Many Ice Age grasses produced seeds before winter arrived. These seeds rested safely through the freezing months. When warmer weather returned, they quickly sprouted into new plants. This simple life cycle helped grasses continue growing even after harsh winters. Their seeds also became food for many birds and small animals. Sedges were another important group of plants. They looked similar to grasses, but belonged to a different plant family. Sedges grew well in wet ground, near streams, around ponds, and in areas where snow melted during the warmer months. Their leaves provided food for many grazing animals. Their roots helped hold wet soil together and reduced the loss of soil caused by melting snow and flowing water. Many parts of the Ice Age world also supported rushes. These plants grew in damp places where enough water remained during the short summer. They formed thick patches that offered food for animals and shelter for insects. Small birds often nested among these plants during the warmer season. Low shrubs covered many areas where trees could not grow well. These shrubs stayed close to the ground, where the air was often slightly warmer and strong winds had less effect on them. Many shrubs had small leaves covered with tiny hairs or thick wax. These features reduced water loss during cold weather, when frozen ground made it difficult for roots to take in water. One well-known Ice Age shrub was the dwarf willow. Unlike the tall willow trees found in warmer places today, dwarf willows remained only a few inches above the ground. Their branches spread across the soil instead of growing upward. This shape protected them from freezing winds and helped snow cover the plants during winter. The snow acted as a layer that reduced exposure to extremely cold air. Another common shrub was the dwarf birch. Like the dwarf willow, it remained short and spread close to the ground. It produced small leaves during the brief growing season. These leaves became food for animals such as hares, reindeer, and other plant eaters. Its small seeds also provided food for birds. Many berry-producing shrubs survived in Ice Age environments. Plants related to modern blueberries, cranberries, and crowberries grew in cold regions. Their fruits developed during the short summer and became an important food source for birds, bears, foxes, and smaller mammals. Some fruits remained on the branches after the first frosts, allowing animals to feed on them later in the season. Mosses covered rocks, wet soil, and fallen plant material across many cold regions. These simple plants did not produce flowers or seeds. Instead, they reproduced through tiny spores. Mosses absorbed water directly through their surfaces. They remained active whenever enough moisture became available, even during cool weather. They formed soft layers over the ground that helped keep moisture in the soil. Some small animals fed directly on mosses. Other animals searched through moss for insects and other tiny living things. Moss also helped create better conditions for other plants by reducing soil drying and slowing the movement of water across the ground. Lichens became some of the most important living things in northern Ice Age landscapes. A lichen is made from a partnership between a fungus and tiny organisms that can make food from sunlight. This partnership allowed lichens to grow in places where many other plants could not survive. They covered rocks, soil, and tree bark. They grew very slowly but could remain alive through freezing temperatures, strong winds, and long periods of snow cover. Reindeer depended heavily on lichens during winter. When deep snow covered the land, they dug through it with their hooves until they reached the lichens beneath. These plants provided valuable food during seasons when fresh green leaves were difficult to find. Large herds of reindeer moved across wide areas, following places where lichens remained available. The open plains of the Ice Age also supported many flowering plants. These plants completed their life cycle very quickly. They grew, flowered, produced seeds, and finished their yearly growth during the short, warm season. Bright flowers attracted insects such as bees, flies, and beetles. These insects carried pollen from one flower to another, allowing new seeds to form before cold weather returned. Many flowering plants stored food underground in roots, bulbs, or thick stems. During winter, the parts above the ground died back, but the underground parts remained alive beneath the frozen soil. As soon as spring arrived, new shoots appeared. This ability allowed these plants to survive many years despite repeated freezing. Some plants developed leaves with thick surfaces that reduced damage from cold winds. Others grew small leaves that required less water. Many plants formed dense clumps that trapped a little warmth close to the ground. Their roots spread widely beneath the surface, helping them collect water and nutrients whenever conditions improved. The growing season during the Ice Age was often very short. Snow remained on the ground for much of the year in many regions. Plants had only a limited amount of time to grow, produce flowers, make seeds, and store enough food for the next winter. This meant that many Ice Age plants grew faster than similar plants living in warmer climates today. As soon as temperatures became suitable, new leaves appeared. Mammoths were among the largest plant-eating animals that lived during the Ice Age. They belonged to the elephant family and shared many features with elephants living today. They had large bodies, strong legs, wide feet, long trunks, and curved tusks. Most kinds of mammoths also had thick fur that covered much of their bodies. Under the fur was a layer of fat that helped keep them warm during very cold weather. Their ears were smaller than those of many modern elephants, which helped reduce the amount of heat lost from their bodies. Their tails were also shorter for the same reason. Every part of their bodies helped them survive in places where snow and ice were common for much of the year. Several kinds of mammoths lived in different parts of the world. The woolly mammoth is the best known kind because many of its remains have been found in frozen ground. Some of these remains were so well preserved that scientists found skin, fur, muscles, and even food that was still inside the stomach. These discoveries helped people understand what mammoths looked like, what they ate, and how they lived. Other kinds of mammoths lived in places that were not as cold. They had less fur and lived in forests, grasslands, and open areas across Europe, Asia, Africa, and North America over long periods of Earth's history. The woolly mammoth spent much of its life in wide grasslands where many different kinds of grasses, small flowering plants, and other low-growing plants covered the ground. It used its long trunk to pull up plants, gather food, and place it into its mouth. Its large flat teeth were made for crushing and grinding tough plant material. These teeth slowly wore down because mammoths spent many hours eating each day. As older teeth became worn, new teeth moved forward inside the jaw to replace them. This process happened several times during the animal's life. When the last set of teeth became too worn to grind food well, the mammoth found it harder to eat enough, especially during difficult seasons. The tusks of mammoths continued growing throughout much of their lives. Some tusks became very long and curved. Scientists believe these tusks had several uses. They may have helped move snow away from plants during winter. They could also be used to push branches, dig into the ground, move objects, protect against danger, and compete with other mammoths. Marks found on some tusks show signs of wear that support the idea that mammoths often used them while searching for food beneath snow or frozen soil. A mammoth's trunk was one of the most useful parts of its body. It was made of thousands of muscles that allowed it to move in many different ways. The trunk helped the animal smell food, pick up grasses, pull leaves from branches, gather water, spray dust over its body, and touch other mammoths. It was also used to greet members of the herd and care for young calves. Mothers often used their trunks to help guide and protect their young as they walked across the land. Mammoths usually lived in family groups led by older females. These family groups included mothers, daughters, sisters, and young calves. Adult males often lived alone or formed small groups after reaching maturity. This pattern is similar to what is seen in many elephant groups today. Older females had experience finding food, locating water, and choosing safe places to travel. Their knowledge increased the chances that younger members of the herd would survive during difficult times. Young mammoths depended completely on their mothers during the first part of their lives. A newborn calf could stand and walk not long after birth, although it remained close to its mother for protection. The calf drank its mother's milk before slowly learning to eat grasses and other plants. As it grew stronger, it copied the feeding habits of older mammoths. Living in a herd allowed young animals to learn important skills by watching experienced adults. Life in the Ice Age was not always easy. Heavy snow sometimes covered the plants that mammoths depended on for food. During long winters, they had to search across large areas to find enough to eat. If snow became too deep or hard, reaching the plants underneath required more effort. Dry periods could also reduce the amount of fresh plant growth. Mammoths often had to keep moving so they could find places where food remained available. The grasslands where mammoths lived supported many other animals. Large herds of grazing animals fed on the same open plains. Different kinds of deer, horses, bison, antelope, muskoxen, and other plant-eating animals also searched for grasses and herbs. These animals spread across huge areas and followed the changing seasons. Their movement helped shape the plant life because grazing affected which plants grew well in different places. Large hunters also lived in these same environments. Lions, wolves, bears, and other meat-eating animals sometimes hunted young, weak, sick, or old mammoths. Healthy adult mammoths were difficult targets because of their size and because family members defended one another. When danger appeared, adult females often surrounded the calves, placing the young in the middle of the group while the adults faced the threat together. People also shared the Ice Age world with mammoths. Early humans hunted mammoths in some places. They used sharp stone tools and worked together in groups. Hunting such a large animal required planning, patience, and cooperation. A successful hunt could provide meat for many people. The thick skin could be used for shelter or clothing. Bones served as building material and tools. Tusks could be shaped into useful objects, artwork, and decorations. Every useful part of the animal was valuable because survival depended on making full use of available resources. Scientists continue to study places where mammoth bones have been discovered, together with stone tools made by humans. Marks left on bones show that people removed meat using sharp tools. Some sites also contain broken bones that may have been opened to reach the rich material inside. These discoveries help explain how people lived alongside mammoths for many thousands of years. Another famous giant plant eater of the Ice Age was the mastodon. Although mastodons were related to mammoths and elephants, they belonged to a different branch of the elephant family. Their bodies were usually shorter and more heavily built than mammoths. They had strong legs, long trunks, and curved tusks, but their teeth were different. The teeth of mastodons had pointed ridges that were well suited for crushing branches, leaves, twigs, and other plant material found in forests. Unlike mammoths, which often lived in open grasslands, mastodons spent much of their time in forests, woodlands, and wet areas filled with trees and bushes. They fed on leaves, young branches, shrubs, fruits, and other plants growing among the trees. Their eating habits helped shape the forests because they removed branches, spread seeds through their waste, and created open spaces where sunlight reached the ground. These changes allowed different plants to grow in places that had once been covered by thick vegetation. Mastodons lived across large parts of North America for many thousands of years. Their fossils have been found in forests, river valleys, lakes, and ancient wetlands. Scientists have studied their teeth, bones, and preserved waste to learn about their diet. Tiny pieces of plants found inside these remains show exactly what kinds of vegetation mastodons preferred during different seasons of the year. Like mammoths, mastodons formed family groups. Mothers cared closely for their young, teaching them where to find food and safe places to travel. Calves remained with the herd while growing stronger and learning how to survive. Older animals provided experience that helped younger members avoid danger and locate feeding grounds. The tusks of mastodons also continued growing during their lives. Scientists study the layers inside these tusks much like they study the growth rings inside trees. These layers provide information about the animal's age, health, diet, and even the seasons it experienced. Changes in the chemical makeup of the tusks show where an animal may have traveled during different periods of its life. Many other giant plant eaters shared the ice age with mammoths and mastodons. Giant ground sloths lived across parts of North and South America. These enormous animals spent much of their time feeding on leaves, branches, fruits, and other plant material. Some stood on their hind legs while reaching higher branches. Their large claws helped pull branches closer and provided protection when threatened. Despite their great size, they survived entirely on plants and spent much of their lives searching for enough food to support their heavy bodies. Large ancient bison also spread across wide grasslands. They grazed in great herds and depended on grasses throughout the changing seasons. Their powerful bodies allowed them to travel long distances in search of fresh grazing areas. Thick coats protected them during cold weather, while their strong hooves carried them across frozen ground, muddy fields, and open plains. Some of the largest deer that ever lived also walked across ice-age landscapes. One of the best known was the giant deer, often called the Irish elk, even though it lived in many parts of Europe and Asia and was not limited to Ireland. Adult males carried enormous antlers that grew wider than the length of many modern vehicles. These antlers were made of bone and were grown again each year after the old ones were shed. Growing such large antlers required large amounts of minerals and energy. During the growing season, the antlers were covered with a layer of soft skin filled with blood vessels that supplied nutrients. When the antlers finished growing, this soft covering disappeared, leaving the hard bone underneath. The giant deer spent much of its time feeding on grasses, herbs, leaves, and young shoots. It lived in places where forests opened into grasslands, and where there was enough space to move without thick tree cover blocking its wide antlers. The changing seasons affected where these animals traveled. During times when food became scarce in one place, herds moved to areas where fresh plants continued to grow. The antlers were important during the breeding season. adult males faced one another and pushed with their antlers to decide which animals would have the chance to mate. These contests usually involved strength, balance, and endurance. Serious injuries did happen, but many contests ended when one animal moved away after realizing it could not overcome its opponent. After the breeding season ended, the heavy antlers were no longer needed. They eventually fell off, and a completely new set began to grow later. Another large plant eater of the Ice Age was the woolly rhinoceros. This animal lived across wide areas of Europe and northern Asia. It was covered with thick hair that protected it from cold weather. Beneath its fur was a layer of fat that helped hold body heat. Its ears were short, reducing the amount of heat that escaped into the cold air. The body was large and powerful, supported by thick legs that carried its heavy weight across frozen ground and grassy plains. The woolly rhinoceros had 2 horns on its nose. The front horn was usually much larger than the one behind it. These horns were made from tightly packed hair-like fibers rather than bone. Scientists believed the large front horn helped clear away snow so the animal could reach grasses growing underneath. It also served in defense and may have been used during conflicts between adult animals. Unlike mammoths that relied heavily on their trunks to gather food, the woolly rhinoceros used its wide mouth to crop grasses close to the ground. Its teeth were built for grinding tough plants over many hours each day. Grass contained tiny particles that slowly wore down the teeth. Even so, the teeth continued working efficiently for many years before becoming heavily worn. Fossils show that woolly rhinoceroses often lived in open environments where grass was plentiful. They may have lived alone for much of the year, although mothers remained with their young until the calves became independent. Young rhinoceroses learned feeding habits by staying close to their mothers during their earliest years. Ancient horses also formed an important part of Ice Age ecosystems. These horses looked different from many modern breeds because they had stronger bodies and thick coats suited to colder weather. Their colors likely varied, helping them blend into different surroundings. They grazed almost constantly because grasses did not provide enough energy in small amounts. They had to eat for many hours every day to meet the needs of their bodies. Horse herds moved together across open plains. Living in groups increased their chances of detecting danger early. Their sharp hearing, wide field of vision, and strong sense of smell helped them notice predators before an attack began. When danger appeared, the herd could quickly run across open ground. Their long legs and powerful muscles allowed them to travel great distances without stopping. Foals were able to stand shortly after birth. Within a short time, they could follow the herd as it continued moving. Staying close to the group reduced the chance of becoming separated and vulnerable to hunters. Several kinds of ancient camels also lived during the Ice Age, especially in North America. Many people think of camels only as animals of deserts, but their early history included grasslands, woodlands, and cooler environments. Some Ice Age camels were larger than those living today. They fed on grasses, shrubs, leaves, and other available plants. Their long legs allowed them to travel across wide areas while searching for food and water. The feet of these camels helped them move over different kinds of ground, including soft soil and dry open plains. Their digestive systems allowed them to make good use of plants that other animals found difficult to digest. This ability helped them survive during periods when food quality changed throughout the year. Large musk oxen also survived in cold northern regions. Thick wool covered much of their bodies. Beneath the longer outer hair grew an extremely soft underlayer that trapped warm air close to the skin. This thick covering protected them from freezing winds and low temperatures. Musk oxen fed mainly on grasses, sedges, mosses, and other low-growing plants. During winter, They searched beneath snow to reach buried vegetation. Strong hooves helped break through softer layers of snow, while their powerful neck muscles supported this work. Living in herds provided protection against predators. When threatened, adults often formed a tight circle, with calves safely gathered in the middle, while the stronger adults faced outward. Steppe bison were among the largest members of the bison family. They spread across vast grasslands, covering parts of Europe, Asia, and North America. Their shoulders carried large muscles that supported heavy heads used while grazing and moving through snow. Thick coats protected them during long winters, while strong legs carried them over great distances. Steppe bison spent much of the day feeding. Herds sometimes contained many individuals moving together across open country. As they grazed, they trimmed grasses, allowing fresh growth to appear later. Their movement also pressed seeds into the soil, helping some plants spread into new places. Large herds attracted predators. Wolves often searched for weak, injured, very young or elderly animals. Healthy adults defended themselves with sharp horns and powerful kicks. Remaining together increased the herd's ability to protect its members. The forests of the Ice Age also supported animals such as the giant beaver. Although not as tall as mammoths or rhinoceroses, it was much larger than modern beavers. It lived near rivers, lakes and wetlands, where water remained available throughout the year. It fed mainly on water plants and vegetation growing near the edges of lakes and streams. Its large teeth continued growing throughout its life, allowing it to keep eating tough plants without wearing them away completely. The giant beaver probably spent much of its time in water, where it found safety from many predators. Fossils discovered in ancient lake beds show that these animals occupied many freshwater environments across North America. Some areas supported large tapirs that browsed on leaves, fruits, and soft plant material. They stayed close to forests where shade and water were available. Their flexible snouts helped them gather food from bushes and low branches. Although they were not as huge as mammoths, they were still among the important plant-eating mammals of the Ice Age. Every one of these large plant-eaters played an important part in maintaining the natural balance of their surroundings. As they fed, they removed older plant growth and allowed fresh shoots to appear. Their waste returned nutrients to the soil. Seeds passed through their digestive systems and were carried into new areas where fresh plants could grow. Their movement created paths used by many smaller animals moving through grasslands and forests. Large animals also influenced the ground beneath their feet. Their constant walking packed some areas of soil while leaving others untouched. Rainwater collected differently because of these paths, affecting where certain plants grew. Places where herds rested often became rich in nutrients because of the large amount of waste left behind. The changing climate of the Ice Age continually affected these giant plant-eaters. Warmer periods allowed forests to spread into some regions, while colder periods expanded open grasslands. Animals adapted by shifting the areas where they searched for food. Some species preferred open country, while others remained closely tied to forests. As the climate continued changing over many thousands of years, suitable habitats expanded in some places and disappeared in others. Seasonal changes also shaped daily life. During spring, fresh plants provided rich food that helped animals regain strength after winter. Summer brought longer feeding periods and rapid plant growth. Autumn allowed animals to build layers of fat before colder weather arrived. Winter required constant searching for food, buried beneath snow or hidden among dry vegetation. The Ice Age was home to many large meat-eating animals that hunted across cold grasslands, open valleys, forests, and mountain slopes. These powerful predators played an important part in the lives of other animals because they hunted weak, young, sick, or old prey. Their hunting affected where herds moved, how animals behaved, and which species survived in different places. Among the most well-known predators of this time were the saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, cave lions, and large bears. Each of these animals had its own body shape, hunting style, and way of surviving in the changing environments of the Ice Age. Saber-toothed cats were among the most unusual hunters ever to live. They belonged to a group of large cats that developed very long upper canine teeth. The best-known species was Smilodon. These cats lived across much of North and South America during the later part of the Ice Age. Their bodies were strong, heavy, and built for power instead of speed. Their front legs were especially thick and muscular. Their shoulders were broad and their neck muscles were very powerful. These features helped them hold large prey while delivering a deadly bite. The long canine teeth of saber-toothed cats could grow to almost the length of a human hand. These teeth looked dangerous, but they were not made for crushing bones. Instead, they were used to make deep wounds in soft parts of the body after the animal had already gained control of its prey. Scientists believe that these cats first used their strong front legs to knock an animal to the ground. Once the prey stopped struggling enough, the cat used its powerful neck muscles to guide its long teeth into the throat or another soft area. The jaws of saber-toothed cats could open much wider than those of living big cats. This wide opening allowed the long teeth to fit around the body of large prey. Even though their mouths opened very wide, the force of their bite was probably weaker than that of many modern big cats. Their hunting success depended more on strong muscles, careful attacks, and the use of their long teeth than on a crushing bite. The body of Smilodon was different from the body of a cheetah or a leopard. It had shorter legs and a shorter tail. These features suggest that it was not built for long chases across open ground. Instead, it probably waited near places where prey gathered, such as water sources, narrow paths, or areas with plants that could hide a hunter. When a suitable animal came close, the cat likely rushed forward over a short distance, using surprise to get close enough for an attack. Large plant-eating animals formed the main food supply for saber-toothed cats. Fossils suggest they hunted horses, camels, young mammoths, young mastodons, giant ground sloths, bison, and other large mammals whenever the chance appeared. Very large adult mammoths were difficult and dangerous prey, so younger or weaker individuals were more likely to become targets. Injured animals also offered safer opportunities. Many fossils of saber-toothed cats have been found with healed injuries. Some skeletons show broken bones that later healed completely. This tells scientists that these animals sometimes survived serious accidents. Some researchers believe that injured individuals may have received help from other members of their group. Others believe they survived by hunting smaller prey or feeding on animals killed by other predators. The exact answer is still uncertain because fossils cannot show every detail of animal behavior. One of the richest places where saber-toothed cat fossils have been discovered is the natural asphalt deposits now known as the La Brea tar pits. During the Ice Age, sticky asphalt sometimes reached the surface and became hidden under water, leaves, or dust. Large animals accidentally stepped into these sticky areas and became trapped. Their struggles attracted predators looking for an easy meal. Many of these hunters also became trapped, leaving behind thousands of fossils. These discoveries have helped scientists learn about the bones, muscles, growth, injuries, and diets of saber-toothed cats. Dire wolves were another famous predator of the Ice Age. They looked similar to modern wolves but were usually heavier and more strongly built. Their heads were larger and their jaws were stronger. Their teeth were thick and well suited for biting through meat and breaking bones. Fossils show that dire wolves lived across much of North America and parts of South America during the later Ice Age. The body of the dire wolf was designed for strength and endurance. Its legs were not as long as those of some living wolves, but its powerful muscles allowed it to handle large prey. Scientists think these wolves often hunted together in packs. Living in groups gave them better chances of bringing down animals much larger than any one wolf could handle alone. Pack hunting required teamwork. Wolves probably watched one another closely during a chase. Some animals may have driven prey in one direction, while others moved into position to block escape routes. By surrounding a large herbivore, the pack increased its chance of success. Young, old, injured or tired animals were easier to catch than healthy adults in their strongest condition. Dire wolves probably hunted horses, ancient bison, camels, young mammoths, young mastodons, deer, and other medium-sized or large animals. Smaller animals may also have been eaten whenever they were available. Like many meat-eating animals, dire wolves probably scavenged at times, feeding on animals that had already died or taking over kills left by other predators when the opportunity was safe. The teeth of dire wolves show signs of heavy wear in many fossils. Some animals had broken teeth, showing that they often bit hard objects such as bones. Breaking bones allowed them to reach nutritious marrow inside. This extra food helped them survive during difficult times when fresh prey was harder to find. Large numbers of dire wolf fossils have also been found at the La Brea tar pits. Thousands of individuals became trapped there after approaching struggling animals. These discoveries show that dire wolves were among the most common large predators in some Ice Age regions. The many skeletons found together also support the idea that these wolves often lived and hunted in social groups. Young dire wolves probably stayed with adults while learning hunting skills. They needed time to develop strong muscles and experience before becoming successful hunters. Adult wolves likely taught younger members through daily hunting activities. Watching older animals, joining group hunts, and feeding together would have helped young wolves learn how to survive. Cave lions were among the largest cats living across Europe and much of Asia during the Ice Age. They belonged to a lion group that was closely related to living lions, but had several important differences. Fossils and ancient cave paintings show that cave lions had large bodies, long legs, and powerful shoulders. Their appearance suggests they were excellent hunters in open landscapes as well as lightly wooded areas. Unlike African lions living today, cave lions may have had little or no mane around the neck. Ancient artists who lived during the Ice Age painted many lions on cave walls. These paintings usually show animals without large manes. Although cave art cannot answer every scientific question, it provides valuable information, because the artists actually saw these animals with their own eyes. Cave lions hunted many kinds of prey, depending on the place and season. Horses, reindeer, bison, muskoxen, young mammoths, and deer all formed part of their diet. Large herds moving across open plains created many opportunities for skilled hunters. Lions probably watched these herds carefully before choosing the best animal to attack. Some scientists believe cave lions hunted alone, while others think they sometimes hunted in groups. Evidence from fossils alone cannot fully answer this question. Living in groups would have helped when hunting very large prey, while hunting alone may have reduced competition for food. Different populations living in different environments may even have shown different hunting behaviors. The strong bodies of cave lions allowed them to overpower large animals after getting close enough to attack. Their sharp claws helped them hold on to struggling prey, while their strong jaws delivered powerful bites. Their eyesight and hearing were important for finding prey during daylight, evening, or early morning hours. Ice Age people sometimes encountered cave lions. Evidence from caves shows that humans painted these animals and occasionally used lion teeth, claws, or bones. These discoveries show that people knew these dangerous predators well. Encounters between humans and cave lions were likely risky for both sides. Humans protected themselves with wooden spears, stone points, teamwork, fire, and careful planning. Cave lions faced competition from other large predators living in the same regions. Wolves, bears, and sometimes groups of humans hunted many of the same animals. When food became scarce, competition likely increased. Larger predators sometimes stole kills from smaller hunters, while groups working together could defend their food more successfully. Brown bears also lived across many Ice Age environments. These bears were highly adaptable and could survive in forests, grasslands, mountains, and river valleys. They ate many different kinds of food depending on the season. Plants, roots, berries, fish, insects, honey, eggs, small animals, and large mammals all became part of their diet when available. Unlike the specialized hunting style of saber-toothed cats, brown bears could change their feeding habits easily. During times when meat was difficult to find, they relied more heavily on plant foods. When animal food became available, they took full advantage of it. They also scavenged from animals that had died naturally or from kills made by wolves or large cats. Large male brown bears were powerful enough to kill deer, horses, or young bison under the right conditions. They used great strength rather than speed. A single blow from a bear's front paw could seriously injure prey or drive away competing predators. Their powerful jaws allowed them to crush bones and eat almost every part of an animal. Brown bears spent much of their lives alone. Adult males and females usually met only during the breeding season. Mothers raised their cubs with great care, protecting them from danger and teaching them where to find food. Cubs stayed with their mother for a long period before becoming independent. Many other animals lived during the Ice Age besides the famous mammoths, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, cave lions, and giant bears. Some of these creatures were large and powerful, while others were small and easy to overlook. Each of them had an important place in the natural world. They lived in forests, grasslands, frozen plains, mountains, wetlands, and river valleys. They searched for food, raised their young, avoided danger, and adapted to cold weather in different ways. Their bones, teeth, footprints, frozen bodies, and other remains have helped scientists learn about these animals and the places where they lived. One of the lesser-known Ice Age animals was the woolly rhinoceros. This large plant-eating mammal lived across much of northern Europe and Asia. Thick fur covered its body, helping it stay warm during long, cold seasons. Under its fur was a layer of fat that also protected it from freezing temperatures. Its ears and tail were short, reducing the amount of heat lost from its body. The woolly rhinoceros had 2 horns on its nose. The front horn was much longer than the one behind it. Scientists believe the long horn helped push snow away so the animal could reach grass and other plants underneath. The horns may also have been used to defend against predators or to settle fights with other woolly rhinoceroses. The woolly rhinoceros spent much of its time eating grasses, small flowering plants, and other low-growing vegetation. Its wide lips and strong teeth helped it pull and chew tough plants. Fossils show that it was well suited to open grasslands where food was spread over large areas. Like many large Ice Age plant eaters, it had to keep moving to find enough food. During warmer seasons, plants grew more easily, but during colder times, it had to work harder to find fresh vegetation. Another interesting Ice Age animal was the giant deer, sometimes called the Irish elk. Despite its common name, this animal was not limited to Ireland. It lived across many parts of Europe and Asia. The males carried very large antlers that spread widely from side to side. These antlers grew every year and were shed after the mating season. Growing such large antlers required large amounts of minerals and energy. During spring and summer, males ate plenty of fresh plants to support antler growth. When the breeding season arrived, the antlers were used to attract females and to compete with other males. The giant deer lived in open woodlands and grasslands, where there was enough space to move with its broad antlers. It fed mainly on grasses, leaves, young branches and herbs. Strong legs allowed it to travel long distances while searching for food. Like modern deer, it likely stayed alert for danger by using its sharp hearing, good eyesight and strong sense of smell. Young calves stayed close to their mothers during the early part of their lives until they became strong enough to move with the herd. The muskox was another animal that survived the harsh Ice Age climate. Some muskoxen are still alive today in parts of the Arctic, making them one of the few large Ice Age mammals that continue to exist. They have long outer hair that almost reaches the ground. Beneath this hair is a soft undercoat that traps warm air close to the body. This thick covering keeps them warm even during very cold weather. Muskoxen usually lived in groups. Staying together helped protect calves from wolves and other predators. When danger appeared, adult muskoxen often formed a circle with the young standing safely in the middle. Their curved horns and strong bodies made them difficult targets for attacking animals. They fed mainly on grasses, mosses, sedges, willow shoots, and other Arctic plants. During winter, they dug through snow to reach frozen vegetation underneath. The Saiga antelope also lived across wide parts of the Ice Age grasslands. This unusual animal had a large nose that looked different from that of most other antelopes. Scientists believe the nose helped warm cold air before it reached the lungs during winter. It also filtered dust during dry seasons when large herds moved across open land. Saiga antelopes were fast runners and often travelled in large groups while searching for fresh grazing areas. Their diet included grasses, herbs and small plants. They moved from one place to another as the seasons changed and food became available in different regions. Living in large herds increased the chances of spotting danger early. Wolves often hunted Saiga antelopes, especially young, weak or injured animals. The steppe bison was another important Ice Age animal. It was one of the largest wild cattle that ever lived. Thick fur covered its body during winter, while powerful shoulders supported large muscles that helped it move through snow and rough ground. Steppe bison lived in herds that sometimes included many individuals. They spent much of their lives grazing on grasses, growing across the cold plains. These animals travelled great distances in search of fresh food. Rivers, changing weather and deep snow often affected where they could move. Large predators followed the herds because they provided a steady source of food. Healthy adult steppe bison were difficult to kill because of their size and strength, but calves and older animals faced greater danger. The giant beaver lived near lakes, rivers, marshes and wetlands across parts of North America. Unlike modern beavers, it grew much larger. Its body reached a size that surprised the first scientists who studied its fossils. Although it shared some features with living beavers, it probably behaved differently in several ways. Scientists are not certain whether it built dams like modern beavers. Some evidence suggests it spent more time living in natural wetlands than creating large structures. The giant beaver fed on water plants, leaves, bark and other vegetation found near rivers and lakes. Its strong front teeth continued growing throughout its life, allowing it to keep feeding on tough plant material. Living near water gave it protection from many land predators because it could quickly enter lakes or rivers when threatened. Ground sloths were another remarkable group of Ice Age animals. Unlike the tree sloths living today, many ground sloths were very large and walked on the ground. Different species lived across North and South America. Some stood several meters tall when reaching for leaves. Strong arms with long claws allowed them to pull branches closer or dig for roots and other food. Ground sloths mostly ate leaves, branches, fruits, and other plant material. Their large stomachs helped break down tough vegetation that was difficult to digest. They moved slowly, but their size and powerful claws provided protection. Predators had to be careful when attacking an adult ground sloth, because a strong swing from its arms could cause serious injuries. Some ground sloths may have spent time inside large natural caves. Their remains have been discovered in cave systems, where dry conditions helped preserve bones and even pieces of skin or hair. Scientists continue studying these discoveries to understand how these animals lived and how they survived changing climates. The Glyptodon was another unusual Ice Age mammal that lived mainly in South America. It belonged to a group related to modern armadillos, but it was much larger. Its body was protected by a hard shell made of many connected bony plates. This shell covered its back, sides, and much of its body, providing strong protection against predators. Some species also had heavy tails that may have helped defend against attacks. The Glyptodon fed mainly on grasses and other low-growing plants. Its broad mouth allowed it to gather large amounts of vegetation while grazing. Strong legs supported its heavy body as it slowly moved across open land. Because of its protective shell, few predators could easily injure a healthy adult. Some fossils show signs that early humans hunted Glyptodons in certain places. Their meat provided food, while the large shell may have been useful for shelter or other purposes. Scientists continue studying these discoveries to learn more about the relationship between humans and these large animals. The American cheetah was another fast predator of the Ice Age. Although its name suggests a close connection to modern cheetahs, it belonged to a different group of cats that developed similar hunting abilities. It lived across parts of North America and likely hunted fast-running animals such as pronghorn relatives and other small to medium-sized plant eaters. Its long legs and flexible body helped it reach high speeds across open ground. Unlike larger predators that depended mainly on strength, the American cheetah relied on speed to catch prey. Good eyesight allowed it to spot animals from a distance before beginning a chase. After catching its prey, it had to eat quickly because other predators might arrive and attempt to steal the meal. During the Ice Age, large amounts of water were locked inside huge sheets of ice that covered wide areas of North America, Northern Europe, and parts of Asia. Because so much water was frozen in these ice sheets, the level of the oceans became much lower than it is today. Areas that are now covered by seawater were dry land during the coldest parts of the Ice Age. One of the most important of these dry land areas was the land that connected northeastern Asia with northwestern North America. This land is known today as the Bering Land Bridge, or Beringia. The Bering Land Bridge stretched across the place where the Bering Strait is found today. At present, the Bering Strait is a narrow body of water that separates Russia from Alaska. During parts of the Ice Age, however, the sea level dropped enough to expose a wide area of land between the two continents. This created a natural pathway that allowed animals, plants, and eventually people to move between Asia and North America without crossing a large sea. The Bering Land Bridge was much wider than many people imagine. It was not simply a narrow strip of land, it covered a very large area that included grasslands, rivers, small lakes, hills, and open plains. Some parts of this land remained dry for many thousands of years because of the lower sea levels. The climate was cold, but some areas received very little snowfall because they were far from the heavy storms that formed over the oceans. This allowed grasses, small plants and shrubs to grow across much of the land. Many large Ice Age animals lived on the Bering Land Bridge. Mammoths walked across these open lands while feeding on grasses. Steppe bison moved in herds across the plains. Horses that lived during the Ice Age also grazed there. Musk oxen, reindeer, wolves, foxes, hares, and many smaller animals were also part of this environment. Predators followed the large herds because they depended on them for food. Early humans also depended on these animals for survival. People living in northern Asia learned how to survive in cold conditions over many generations. They made clothing from animal skins to protect themselves from freezing temperatures. They built shelters using wood, animal bones, hides, and other materials that were available in the places where they lived. They learned how to make fire, prepare food, preserve meat, and create tools from stone, bone, ivory, wood, and antlers. These skills allowed them to live in places where survival was often difficult. The movement of people toward the northeast did not begin because they knew another continent existed. They had no maps showing distant lands. Instead, they traveled because they followed the animals they hunted, searched for fresh water, looked for better hunting grounds, and found new places where food could be gathered. As groups settled one area, later generations sometimes continued moving into nearby regions. Over long periods, this gradual movement brought some people closer and closer to the Bering Land Bridge. Scientists believe that people entered Beringia during one of the colder parts of the Ice Age when the land bridge was exposed. Some groups may have remained in this region for many generations instead of crossing quickly into North America. Beringia itself provided food, water, animals and plants that could support human life. Families hunted large animals, gathered edible plants during warmer seasons, caught fish from rivers and lakes, and collected other useful natural resources. Life in Beringia required careful planning throughout the year. Winters were long and cold. Food had to be stored whenever possible. Animal hides needed to be prepared before the cold season became severe. Hunters had to understand the movement of animal herds so they could find enough food for their families. Every successful hunt depended on experience, teamwork, and knowledge passed from older members of the group to younger generations. Stone tools played an important role in everyday life. Early people made sharp cutting tools from carefully shaped stones. Spears allowed hunters to attack animals from a safer distance. Stone blades helped cut meat, remove animal skins, prepare wood, and shape other tools. Bone needles allowed people to sew clothing that fit closely and trapped body heat more effectively. These tools were improved over many generations as people discovered better ways of making and using them. Fire remained one of the most valuable resources. It provided warmth during cold weather, cooked meat, made some foods easier to digest, frightened away dangerous animals, and allowed people to gather together during long nights. Fire also helped dry clothing, harden wooden spear points, and provide light inside shelters after sunset. Children learned survival skills from their families. They watched adults prepare food, repair clothing, make tools, and care for younger children. As they became older, they practiced hunting smaller animals, gathering useful plants, and learning how to recognize safe places to camp. knowledge was passed through observation, practice, and spoken language. The movement into North America probably happened during periods when the conditions became favorable. Scientists continue studying exactly how these migrations took place. Some evidence suggests that people traveled through an opening between large ice sheets after the climate became slightly warmer and the ice began to retreat. Other evidence suggests that some groups may have traveled along parts of the Pacific coastline, using the coast as a route while gathering food from the sea and nearby land. The opening between the large ice sheets did not exist throughout the entire Ice Age. Massive glaciers covered much of Canada for long periods. When these glaciers blocked the way, movement farther south may have been difficult or impossible. As temperatures slowly increased and the glaciers began melting, new land became available for plants, animals, and eventually human settlement. The coastal route would also have changed over time because sea levels rose and fell during different stages of the Ice Age. Some coastal camps that may once have existed are now deep underwater because the oceans rose after the Ice Age ended. This makes it harder for archaeologists to find evidence from these early settlements. Archaeologists search for signs left behind by early humans: stone tools, broken animal bones showing marks from cutting, ancient campfires, shelters, and other remains help build a picture of how people lived. Sometimes tiny pieces of charcoal from ancient fires can be studied to estimate when people occupied a particular site. Scientists also examine pollen, seeds, animal bones, and layers of soil to understand the environment that surrounded these ancient communities. Human DNA has become another important source of information. DNA studies show relationships between different groups of people living today and those who lived in the distant past. These studies support the idea that the ancestors of many indigenous peoples of North and South America came from populations that once lived in northeastern Asia and Beringia. Over many generations, these populations became separated as they spread across the continents, developing their own cultures, languages, traditions, and histories. The people who crossed into North America were not all part of one single journey. Migration happened over long periods, and different groups may have traveled at different times. Some groups settled in one area for many generations, while others continued moving farther. Each group adapted to the environments they entered: forests, mountains, rivers, lakes, grasslands, deserts, and coastlines all required different skills and knowledge. As people spread across North America, they encountered many different climates. Some regions remained cold throughout much of the year. Other areas became warmer and supported forests, filled with many kinds of plants and animals. Rivers provided fish and fresh water. Lakes became important places for hunting and gathering. Coastal regions offered shellfish, fish, sea mammals, and seabirds. The movement southward continued slowly over many generations. Eventually, people reached Central America and later South America. Archaeological discoveries show that humans spread into many different environments across these continents. They lived in forests, grasslands, mountain regions, river valleys, deserts, and coastal areas. Each location required new knowledge about local plants, animals, weather, and available resources. Early communities became skilled at recognizing edible plants. They learned which berries, roots, seeds, nuts, and leaves could be safely eaten. They also learned which plants were poisonous or useful for medicine. This knowledge was important because hunting alone could not always provide enough food. Fishing became another important activity. Wherever rivers, lakes, or coastlines were available, spears, nets, hooks, traps, and other methods allowed people to catch fish throughout different seasons. Fish provided valuable nutrition and could sometimes be dried for storage. The animals hunted by early people varied depending on where they lived. In northern regions, mammoths, bison, caribou, and musk oxen were important sources of food and materials. In forests, deer and smaller animals became more common. Birds, rabbits, and many other animals were also hunted when available. Nothing from a successful hunt was wasted whenever possible. Meat was eaten fresh or preserved. Bones became tools, needles and handles. Animal skins became clothing, blankets, footwear, and shelter coverings. Tendons served as strong thread for sewing. Antlers could be shaped into tools. Fat could be used for cooking, light, or other purposes. Seasonal movement continued even after people settled new regions. Some groups traveled during different times of the year to follow migrating animals or gather seasonal foods. Camps were established where food was plentiful. When resources became scarce, people moved to another location that could better support the group. Climate changes continued after people entered North America. The Ice Age did not end suddenly. Temperatures slowly increased over long periods. The giant ice sheets gradually melted. Rivers changed course as melting ice released enormous amounts of water. Lakes formed where glaciers had once existed. Sea levels slowly rose as more frozen water returned to the oceans. The rising oceans eventually covered the Bering Land Bridge. The dry land connecting Asia and North America disappeared beneath the sea. After this happened, direct movement across the land bridge was no longer possible. Populations living on each continent became separated by water. Even though the land bridge vanished, the descendants of those early travelers continued living across North and South America. The disappearance of the land bridge changed the movement of animals as well. Species that had once crossed freely between the continents could no longer do so. Some animals survived on one continent but disappeared from the other. Environmental changes continued affecting wildlife long after the land bridge had been submerged. Many large Ice Age animals eventually became extinct. Mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and several other species disappeared. Scientists continue studying why these extinctions occurred. Climate change likely played an important role by changing habitats and food supplies. Human hunting may also have affected some populations. The exact reasons probably differed from one species to another and from one region to another. The people who settled the Americas continued developing their own cultures over thousands of years. Languages changed from one generation to the next. New hunting methods appeared. Different styles of tools were invented. Local traditions developed according to the environments where people lived. Some communities remained highly mobile, while others established longer-lasting settlements. Stone technology continued improving. Toolmakers selected different kinds of stone depending on what was available locally. Sharp blades were shaped through careful striking and pressure. Broken tools were repaired whenever possible because suitable stone could sometimes be difficult to find. Clothing also changed according to climate. People living in colder regions continued making thick garments from animal hides lined with fur. Those living in warmer climates wore lighter clothing made from available materials. Footwear remained important in rough or frozen landscapes. Shelters reflected local conditions. Some groups built temporary camps that could easily be taken apart during seasonal travel. Others created stronger homes where resources allowed longer settlement. Wood, animal skins, grass, reeds, stone and earth were all used depending on what could be gathered nearby. Food preparation involved many different techniques. Meat could be roasted over fires, dried for storage, or smoked to help preserve it. Plant foods might be crushed, ground, boiled, or roasted depending on the type of food and available tools. Grinding stones allowed seeds to be turned into course meal in some communities. Families cared for older members whose experience remained valuable even when they could no longer hunt. Older people remembered seasonal changes, safe travel routes, successful hunting grounds, useful plants, and traditional knowledge. Their experience helped younger generations survive. Storytelling became an important way of sharing knowledge. Stories helped children remember dangerous places, important animals, seasonal changes, family histories, and community traditions. Spoken language preserved information that could not be written because writing systems did not yet exist. Archaeologists have discovered sites across both North and South America that show humans reached many different regions earlier than once believed. New discoveries continue changing scientific understanding of when and how people spread throughout the continents. Each new excavation adds another small piece to the larger picture of human migration. Ancient footprints found in some locations provide direct evidence of people walking across soft ground many thousands of years ago. These footprints sometimes show adults traveling together with children. In some places, footprints from humans appear alongside those of Ice Age animals, giving scientists a rare glimpse into daily life. Animal bones bearing cut marks made by stone tools show that humans processed meat at many ancient campsites. Broken bones sometimes reveal that people extracted nutritious bone marrow by cracking the bones open with stones. Burned bones found near ancient fireplaces indicate that cooking often took place within these camps. Plant remains recovered from archaeological sites reveal that early people ate a wide variety of foods. Tiny seeds, preserved pollen, and bits of charcoal help reconstruct ancient environments. These remains show which plants grew nearby and how the local climate changed over time. Scientists also study ancient lake sediments, cave deposits, and ice cores to understand the climate during the periods when humans migrated. These natural records preserve evidence about temperature, rainfall, dust, volcanic eruptions, and plant life. Together, they help explain the conditions faced by early travelers. Genetic research continues providing new information. DNA collected from ancient human remains allows scientists to study relationships between early populations. Modern DNA from indigenous communities also provides valuable information when studied with respect for cultural traditions and with proper permission. These studies help trace patterns of migration while recognizing that living communities have their own histories, cultures, and identities beyond genetic evidence. Not every question has been answered. Scientists continue discussing exactly when the first people reached different parts of the Americas. New archaeological discoveries sometimes support existing ideas, while others raise new questions. Careful research, additional excavations, and improved scientific methods continue expanding knowledge about these early migrations. The Bering Land Bridge itself was not always present throughout the Ice Age. During warmer periods, melting ice caused sea levels to rise, covering the land. During colder periods, more water became trapped inside expanding ice sheets, exposing the land once again. This cycle happened several times over very long periods, as Earth's climate naturally changed. The plants growing across Beringia formed an environment capable of supporting many grazing animals. Grasses remained especially important because they fed mammoths, bison, horses, and other plant-eating species. These animals in turn supported predators and human hunters. Rivers and small lakes added fresh water that both animals and people depended upon. The end of the Ice Age was a very long period of change that took place over thousands of years. The world slowly became warmer, the great sheets of ice started to melt, and many parts of the earth changed in ways that affected every living thing. Animals, plants, rivers, lakes, coastlines, and people all experienced the effects of this warming climate. These changes happened little by little, and each generation of living things had to survive in a world that looked slightly different from the one before it. The warming climate was caused by natural changes in the Earth's climate system. The planet has always gone through colder and warmer periods over very long stretches of time. During the Ice Age, large parts of North America, Europe, and Asia were covered by huge ice sheets. These ice sheets reflected much of the sunlight that reached the Earth, helping to keep temperatures low. As the climate slowly became warmer, the ice reflected less sunlight because it began to shrink. More sunlight was absorbed by land and water, which helped temperatures continue to rise. The warming did not happen at the same speed everywhere. Some places became warmer earlier than others. Some areas still experienced very cold winters for many centuries, even while the overall climate was becoming warmer. There were also shorter periods when temperatures dropped again before warming continued. These changes happened naturally as the Earth's climate adjusted over long periods. One important reason for these changes involved the way the Earth moved around the Sun. The Earth's path around the Sun slowly changes over many thousands of years. The angle at which the Earth tilts also changes, and the direction of that tilt changes as well. These slow movements affect how much sunlight reaches different parts of the Earth during different seasons. When northern regions received more sunlight during summer, the winter snow and ice melted more easily. As this continued year after year, the great ice sheets slowly became smaller. The atmosphere also played an important part. Natural changes caused the amount of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere to increase. These gases help keep heat close to the Earth's surface. As their levels rose, temperatures increased further. Warmer oceans also released more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere under some conditions, while growing forests and wetlands also affected the movement of these gases through nature. The Earth's climate system involved many connected processes that influenced one another over long periods. The large ice sheets that had covered much of the non-northern continents began to melt from their edges. Every summer, more ice melted than was replaced during winter. This slow loss continued century after century. The thick walls of ice that had once stretched across huge areas became thinner. Their edges moved farther north or higher into mountains where cooler temperatures remained. Huge amounts of fresh water flowed away from the melting glaciers. Rivers became larger and stronger. Meltwater rushed across the land, carrying rocks, sand, and soil. Some rivers cut deeper valleys, while others spread new layers of sediment across wide plains. These materials later became rich farmland in many places because they contained minerals that plants needed. As glaciers melted, many new lakes formed. Some lakes filled deep valleys that glaciers had carved into the land. Others appeared where blocks of melting ice left empty spaces behind. Some of these lakes were small and temporary, while others became among the largest freshwater lakes on Earth. Their water supported fish, birds, mammals, insects, and many kinds of plants. Some lakes that formed near melting glaciers grew extremely large because walls of ice blocked the natural flow of water. Eventually, these ice barriers became too weak to hold back the water. When they broke, enormous floods rushed across the land. These floods changed valleys, moved huge amounts of rock and soil, and created new landscapes. In some places, the evidence of these ancient floods can still be seen today. The melting ice also caused rivers to change their paths. Rivers that had once flowed beneath glaciers or around frozen barriers found new routes. Some old river channels dried up while new ones became larger. Wetlands appeared in many low-lying areas where water collected. These wetlands became important homes for birds, fish, insects, frogs, and many other living things. As temperatures rose, snow remained on the ground for shorter periods each year. Areas that had once stayed frozen for much of the year slowly became free of snow during longer summers. Plants had more time to grow, produce seeds, and spread into new places. Animals followed these plants because they depended on them for food. The frozen ground beneath the surface also began to change. In many northern regions, soil that had stayed frozen throughout the year slowly thawed. This allowed plant roots to grow deeper into the ground. Water drained differently, creating ponds in some places and drying other areas. The thawing ground also released trapped organic material that had remained frozen for thousands of years. The rising temperatures allowed forests to spread northward into areas that had once been too cold for many trees. First came grasses and small plants. Later, bushes spread across the land. After that, different kinds of trees slowly appeared. Pine, spruce, birch, and other trees gradually covered large areas that had previously been open grassland or frozen ground. Not every kind of tree spread at the same speed. Each species had its own needs. Some preferred cooler conditions while others needed warmer summers. Seeds were carried by wind, rivers, birds, and animals. As new forests grew, they created homes for many different forms of life. Grasslands also changed. In some places, forests replaced open plains. In other areas, grasslands remained because rainfall, soil conditions, or regular natural fires prevented large forests from becoming established. The balance between forests and grasslands continued to shift over many centuries. As plants spread into new lands, animals followed them. Grazing animals moved toward fresh feeding grounds. Predators followed the grazing animals. Birds found new nesting places among growing trees. Fish entered newly formed lakes and rivers. Insects expanded into regions that had once been covered by ice. Some animals adapted successfully to these changes. Species that could eat many different foods often survived better because they could find food under changing conditions. Animals that could live in forests as well as open land also had greater opportunities to survive. Other animals found the changes much more difficult. Some large Ice Age animals depended on cold grasslands that slowly disappeared as forests spread. Their feeding grounds became smaller. Their migration routes changed. Finding enough food became more difficult in many places. Woolly mammoths were among the animals affected by these changes. They had lived across large areas during the colder climate. As forests spread and grasslands became smaller, suitable habitat became less common. Many mammoth populations slowly became isolated from one another. Smaller groups had greater difficulty surviving changes in food supply, weather, and disease. Woolly rhinoceroses also depended on cold, open landscapes. As temperatures rose and forests expanded, the environment they needed became less common. Their numbers gradually decreased until they disappeared completely. Giant deer with enormous antlers also experienced changing conditions. Forests made movement more difficult than open grasslands. Changes in food sources and habitats affected their survival. Their populations slowly declined over time. Mastodons lived mainly in wooded areas and ate leaves, branches, and other plant material. Although they already lived in forests, the changing climate still affected the plants they depended on. Human hunting may also have placed additional pressure on their populations in some regions. Large ground sloths disappeared from many areas during this period. Different species faced different environmental changes depending on where they lived. Some regions became drier, while others became wetter. Food supplies shifted as vegetation changed. Saber-toothed cats also disappeared. Their survival depended on finding enough large prey animals. As populations of large plant-eating animals became smaller or moved into different regions, predators faced increasing difficulty finding food. Dire wolves experienced similar challenges. They hunted large animals across open landscapes. As prey numbers changed and different environments spread, they faced growing pressure. Other predators that adapted more easily to forests or hunted smaller animals continued to survive. Short-faced bears disappeared during this period as well. Their exact reasons for disappearing are still studied by scientists. Climate change, changes in available food, competition, and other environmental pressures likely all played parts. Many smaller animals survived because they could adapt more easily. Foxes, rabbits, squirrels, beavers, deer, wolves, bears, and many birds adjusted to changing forests, rivers, and grasslands. Some species shifted their ranges farther north. Others changed their diets or seasonal movements. Fish populations also changed as rivers and lakes formed or disappeared. New waterways allowed some fish species to spread into areas where they had never lived before. Other fish became trapped in isolated lakes where they developed separate populations over long periods. Bird migration patterns slowly changed with the climate. As forests expanded northward, birds that nested in woodland habitats followed the advancing trees. Water birds found countless new lakes and wetlands created by melting glaciers. Shorebirds adjusted as coastlines changed with rising sea levels. Insects also spread into new regions. Bees, butterflies, beetles, flies, mosquitoes, dragonflies, and many other insects followed flowering plants into newly warmed landscapes. Their activities helped pollinate plants and supported growing ecosystems. The warming climate affected the oceans as well. The melting of enormous ice sheets added vast amounts of fresh water to the seas. Sea levels slowly rose over thousands of years. Land that had once connected different regions gradually disappeared beneath the water. The rise in sea level was not sudden across the whole world. In some periods, sea levels rose more quickly because melting ice increased rapidly. In other periods, the rise slowed as temperatures stabilized for a time. Overall, the ocean steadily expanded across many coastal regions. Many coastlines changed completely. Low-lying plains disappeared beneath rising water. New bays formed. River mouths became wider. Islands became separated from the mainland. Some valleys filled with seawater, creating long, narrow inlets. One of the most important land connections lost beneath rising seas was the Bering Land Bridge. During the coldest parts of the Ice Age, lower sea levels exposed this broad area of land between Asia and North America. Animals and people crossed this region over many generations. As sea levels rose, the land bridge slowly disappeared beneath the water, ending this direct route between the continents. Other land bridges also vanished beneath rising seas. Regions that had once allowed animals to travel between islands and continents became covered by water. Populations became separated from one another. Over many generations, these isolated groups sometimes developed different characteristics. Many coastal camps used by early humans disappeared beneath the rising sea. People living near the shore had to move inland or settle on higher ground. Evidence of these ancient settlements now lies underwater in many parts of the world, making them difficult for archaeologists to study. River valleys near the coast changed into wide estuaries, where fresh water mixed with salt water. These areas became rich environments filled with fish, shellfish, birds, and plant life. Many human communities later settled near these productive places, because they provided reliable food. Coral reefs also responded to changing sea levels. As the water slowly rose, healthy coral colonies grew upward toward sunlight. Some reefs successfully kept pace with rising water, while others became buried beneath deeper seas or damaged by changing conditions. Ocean currents also changed as fresh water entered the seas. These currents move heat around the planet and influence weather patterns. Changes in ocean circulation affected rainfall, temperatures, and climate in many regions. Scientists continue studying exactly how these processes interacted during the end of the Ice Age. Weather patterns gradually became different from those of the colder Ice Age. Rainfall increased in some places and decreased in others. Storm tracks shifted. Seasonal temperatures became more moderate across many regions that had once experienced extremely cold conditions. Some areas became wetter as glaciers released meltwater and changing winds brought more rain. Lakes expanded, rivers grew larger, and wetlands spread. Other regions experienced increasing dryness as climate patterns shifted. Grasslands replaced some forests where rainfall became too limited for large numbers of trees. Mountain glaciers also shrank during this warming period. Ice that had filled mountain valleys slowly retreated toward higher elevations. Some mountain glaciers disappeared completely, while others survived only on the highest peaks, where temperatures remained low enough to preserve snow throughout the year. The shrinking mountain glaciers continued feeding rivers with meltwater during warm seasons. Communities that later settled downstream benefited from these steady water supplies for farming, fishing, and drinking. As the ice melted, the land beneath it also changed. Huge ice sheets had pressed down on the Earth's surface because of their great weight. When the ice disappeared, the land slowly began rising again. This process continues in some northern regions even today, because the Earth's surface takes a very long time to recover after carrying such enormous weight. This slow rising of the land affected coastlines. In some regions, the land rose faster than sea levels, causing new areas of land to emerge from the water. In other places, rising seas moved farther inland. These different movements created many different types of coastlines around the world. The release of pressure from melting glaciers also influenced the Earth's crust. Small changes occurred as the surface adjusted to the changing weight above it. Scientists continue studying how these movements affected earthquakes and volcanic activity in different regions. Many caves recorded evidence of these climate changes. Water dripping through cave ceilings formed mineral deposits that preserved information about rainfall and temperature. Scientists study these deposits to understand how climates changed over thousands of years. Layers of mud at the bottom of lakes also preserve records of changing environments. Each year, tiny particles settled onto the lake floor. Pollen, dust, volcanic ash, and plant remains became trapped within these layers. By studying them, scientists learn which plants grew during different periods and how climates changed. Ice cores taken from the remaining glaciers contain tiny bubbles of ancient air. These bubbles preserve samples of the atmosphere from long ago. Scientists measure the gases trapped inside them to understand past temperatures and climate conditions during the end of the Ice Age. Pollen preserved in lakes, peat bogs, and wet soils provides valuable information about changing vegetation. Different plant species produce different pollen grains. By identifying these grains, scientists can determine which forests, grasses, or flowers grew in an area during different periods. Animal bones also help reveal changing environments. The types of animals living in different regions changed as climates warmed. Their bones, teeth, and other remains provide information about food, habitats, diseases, and movement across ancient landscapes. Human communities experienced major changes during the warming climate. People who had once hunted across cold, open plains now entered expanding forests, growing wetlands and changing coastlines. They learned new ways to survive in these changing environments. As forests expanded, hunters adapted their methods. Dense woodlands required different hunting techniques than open grasslands. Smaller hunting groups often became more effective in forests where visibility was limited by trees and bushes. People also began relying more on a wider variety of foods. Fish became increasingly important in many regions where rivers and lakes expanded. Shellfish were collected along changing coastlines. Nuts, berries, roots, fruits, and seeds became valuable seasonal foods in growing forests. The warming climate supported a greater variety of edible plants in many places. Longer growing seasons allowed more fruits and seeds to mature fully before winter arrived. Human groups learned which plants could be gathered safely and when they were ready to harvest. Fishing became increasingly important as rivers and lakes spread across many regions. People developed improved fishing tools including hooks, nets, harpoons, and traps. Different communities created methods suited to their local waters and fish species. Boats gradually became more useful where large rivers, lakes, and coastal waters provided opportunities for travel and fishing. Early watercraft helped people reach islands, cross rivers, and gather food from aquatic environments. The disappearance of some large Ice Age animals encouraged people to hunt smaller animals more often. Deer, wild pigs, rabbits, birds, fish, and many other species became increasingly important sources of food. Hunting methods became more specialized depending on local conditions. Stone tools also changed over time. Smaller and more carefully shaped tools appeared in many regions. People created blades, arrow points, scrapers, drills, knives, and other tools suited for woodworking, fishing, preparing food, and making clothing. Wood became more widely available as forests spread. People used it for building shelters, making tools, creating handles for stone blades, constructing boats, and producing many everyday objects that earlier communities living in treeless regions had less access to. Animal skins continued providing clothing, blankets, bags, and shelter coverings. Different animals became important depending on local environments. As large Ice Age mammals disappeared, people relied more heavily on deer, elk, antelope, and many smaller animals. Communities adjusted their seasonal movements according to changing food supplies. Some groups continued traveling long distances during different seasons. Others settled for longer periods near lakes, rivers, or coastlines where food remained available throughout much of the year. Population slowly increased in many regions because warmer climates often supported more plants and animals. Greater food availability allowed some communities to grow larger than before. Families expanded into new territories as they searched for suitable places to live. Communication between different human groups continued through travel and trade. Valuable stone, shells, animal skins, pigments, and other materials moved across long distances. These exchanges spread new ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. Art also reflected changing environments. People continued creating carvings, paintings, decorated tools, and personal ornaments. The animals shown in artwork gradually reflected the changing wildlife found in local regions. Fire remained one of humanity's most valuable tools. People used controlled fire for warmth, cooking, protection, clearing vegetation, shaping wooden tools, and managing landscapes. In some places, carefully managed burning encouraged the growth of plants that attracted game animals. Dogs had already begun living alongside humans, during the later part of the Ice Age. As environments changed, these animals continued helping people hunt, guard camps, and carry out other tasks. Their close relationship with humans grew stronger over time. The changing climate also influenced the spread of diseases, affecting both animals and people. As different species moved into new regions, they encountered unfamiliar parasites, insects, and microorganisms. These natural processes formed part of changing ecosystems. Wetlands created by melting glaciers became homes for countless living things. Frogs, fish, insects, birds, mammals, and water-loving plants formed rich communities. These environments supported many food chains and increased biological diversity across large areas. Peat bogs developed in many cool, wet regions. Dead plant material accumulated in waterlogged ground where it decayed very slowly. These bogs preserved pollen, wood, insects, and even animal remains for thousands of years, providing valuable information about ancient environments.